First thing on the agenda is a hearing on Senate Bill 90. Chuck, you want to give us an overview on Senate Bill 90?
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. Senate Bill 90 expands the Rural Housing Incentive District Act. It expands the use of proceeds, the way that cities or counties can use bond proceeds. Under current law, use of that money is limited to acquisition of property, payment of relocation assistance, site preparation, utilities, streets, sidewalks, that kind of thing. But this bill expands that. It allows use of the funds for renovation of buildings or other structures more than 25 years of age, primarily for residential use located in a central business district. That needs to be approved by the Secretary of Commerce. The city or county must certify the age of the building to the Secretary. Improvements are only permitted for the second or higher floors of the building, and they are only permitted for residential purposes, not commercial purposes. And that is what the bill does.
Do we have any questions, comments? Not seeing any, we'll go ahead and go to our proponents. We'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 90. David Salver.
Morning, committee. David Sofer, Legislative Policy Director, Department of Commerce. Great to see you again. Getting to see plenty of you guys. I appreciate the opportunity here to testify. So we are a proponent of SB 90. This was brought to us by quite a few different communities that utilize Rural Housing Incentive District. But the challenge is that they simply need more housing. This is not a new problem. Rural communities lack housing. There's a tremendous shortage all across our state. We need a variety of different solutions to be able to help address this. This is not necessarily a new program. This has been utilized in a lot of different states. Iowa, Colorado, North Carolina are just some examples of this. So what is Rural Housing Incentive District? Let's start there. So in short, in order to be able to qualify for the Rural Housing Incentive District, you have to meet 4 needs. And these are all defined by statute. So really quickly, I'll just go through them. Number 1 is there has to be a shortage of quality housing of various price ranges in the city or county, despite the best efforts of public and private housing developers. Number 2, shortage of quality housing can be expected to persist, and that additional financial incentives are necessary in order to encourage the private sector to construct or renovate housing in such city or county. The third is the shortage of quality housing is a substantial deterrent to the future economic growth and development of the city or county. And then the fourth is the future economic well-being of the city or county depends on the governing body providing additional incentives for the construction or renovation of quality housing in such city or county. Charles did a good job of being able to walk you through what these payments are good for. So it's payment of relocation assistance, site preparation, sanitary storm sewers, drainage conduits, street grading, street lighting fixes, and the like. Really quickly, there is a population limit, so it must be in a city of under 60,000 and a county of under 80,000. So as we talked about, as I mentioned here a little bit earlier, there is a shortage in housing. I think there's a lot of different reasons why. Part of it is cost. Part of it is just being able to build enough housing at one time in order to make it worthwhile for the developer. So in order to attack this problem, we are going to need a whole variety of solutions. So one thing we looked at, which was brought to us, is we've got Main Street, right? So Main Street's all across. They've got tremendous small businesses, but those second floors and above tend to be vacant. There are many small businesses that do not necessarily want to be on the second floors. There's no visibility, and so they end up being unused. So the way, we looked at what other states did, and there's tremendous success. I put in my testimony a story from Colorado that was able to, their program specifically works to be able to utilize those vacant second floors to kind of create a shared workspace living area. So, and especially works well with the arts. We want to be able to have those type of housing available because our research and national research shows that younger individuals, those that are leaving college, that kind of next generation does not necessarily feel they all need to own land, have housing, have houses per se. Some of them are perfectly comfortable with apartments walking on Main Street. and being able to live comfortably that way. So we want to be able to provide different types of housing to be able to keep our rural communities vibrant, keep our folks here. And so what we ended up proposing was to be able to allow renovation, including vertical construction and structures of over 25 years old for residential use specifically. Structures will have to be located in a central business district as approved by the Secretary of Commerce. And then the certification of building age must be submitted to the Secretary when applying for the district. The eligible residential improvements shall include only those made to the second floor and above, located in an approved incentive district. What I would tell you is to talk about the meaning of this program, why it's so important. I'd ask you, I know there are multiple communities that testify. There'll be other folks that'll listen to their testimony, listen to them and why it's important for them and why this is such a crucial component to their community being able to expand, grow, and prosper over time. We did also provide a list of rural housing incentive districts that have been approved as of February 5th, 2021. We currently have 23 different communities that utilize this program. With that, at the appropriate time, I'll be happy to stand for questions, and we urge the committee to please pass out SB 90 favorable for passage.
I'm going to go ahead and allow questions now, David, and because you're going to probably take the bulk of them. So do we have any questions? Mike, go ahead. Senator Straub. I'm getting there.
Strawberry.
There we go.
So is this really an incentive, or is this rewarding projects that would already be taking place? Like, what exactly is the incentive to take a property that doesn't currently have residential space, like above, I assume above an existing business or commercial building, and turn that into living space?
So keep in mind, I mean, the cost of doing that can be pretty expensive when you start factoring in sewer lines and other items needed specifically for residential use. So as a result of that, this isn't, yes, technically this is called an incentive, but the way we view it is this is a help to our cities and counties to be able to assist them with being able to cover some of the costs that are necessary in order to be able to expand housing options available to their residents in the community.
Go ahead, follow.
So what exact costs would it cover in doing so, and what is the incentive to do that versus building a new apartment complex on the edge of town?
So you can still build that complex if you want. If there are limitations in being able to do so for whatever reason, whether it be the developer may not be interested and you may not be able to find that match of a developer to do that or the like, this simply provides another option if you have the existing infrastructure in place, that you can then be able to expand it and take care of some of the costs that would be associated with converting some of that into housing.
You got a follow-up? Nope, you're done. Okay, Senator Stephan.
Thank you, Chairman. Walk me through this a little bit. I apologize for my ignorance in regards to the program. You got cities that are less than 60,000, counties less than 80,000. How's that played out? Where's it all gone? Where have you all? What's it look like distribution wise? Is this going into the 50,000 person towns and the 70,000 person counties, or is this really filtering down to the Ellenwoods of Kansas?
Sure. So if you look at the page 2 and page 3 of my testimony, you will see a list of exactly the participants in cities. You'll see a wide variety of cities, some bigger, some smaller. There's definitely a diverse mix of who utilizes this program.
Where's that at?
So page 2, so you'll see on my, sorry, I don't.
The second page at the bottom. Did I get it?
Say.
It takes all of us to find it. Yeah, numbers would help. Okay, I'll look that over. So really all the,
Go ahead.
thank you. So really all that we're doing here in changing this program is adding this concept of building over these main street
Correct.
businesses.
Correct. This program already exists. Like I said, these communities take advantage of it. This would simply give them one additional option when it comes to how they want to utilize the program and expand their housing options in their community.
I think we heard that Iowa and a couple other states have it, but Secretary was already planning to bring this in where you have these smaller towns, the main streets are, they're pretty viable, but I mean, you add a few people down there and you add some housing, to try to alleviate, that housing issue and, puts more people into these local downtown squares. So, Senator Stephan, you got another question?
Thank you. How many projects do we have going on in regards to this right now, this whole program? Do you have that number by any chance?
So there's 23 specific cities. I don't know how many projects in each city. I will get back to you on exactly how many.
How old's that program again?
Let me see here. It's been around for quite a few years. I want to say since potentially the 90s. Charles might be able to answer that potentially.
Is this the one we tweaked a couple years ago and took it out 25 years from 15?
Might be.
Senator Dahl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can speak strongly for this program. Garden City has utilized this, and it's created jobs, actually, because we have a lot of the younger people that move downtown, live in these apartments, and there's been a coffee shop open up, that they all congregate to. There's a restaurant that opened up, a little sandwich, a fruit bar type thing, something I'd never go to, but the young, the other people go to. But this program has been wonderful for them, and it combines with the city program too. We just partnered with them. But I can thank Dodge City because I have a lot of family in Dodge. It's been very successful for Dodge City. I can't speak for it, haven't seen it, but in Garden City, this has been a really, really good addition.
Well, and I think, with the housing issue, there's people, young kids want to live, in lofts and condos. Are there further questions or comments? If you guys think of one, David can come back. Okay, we'll go ahead and go to Mark Toom.
Thank you, Chairman Olson, members of the Senate Commerce Committee. Thanks for the opportunity to testify in support of Senate Bill 90. My name is Mark Toom. I'm with the Kansas Association of Realtors, and we've long supported the concept and now expansion of rural housing incentive districts as an important tool to increase housing opportunities in rural areas. And while sales of existing homes and residential properties was pretty strong in 2020, much of the last 10 years, the issue has been supply. And if you take a look at 2020, each month, month over month statistics, the supply saw 40% fewer listings in each month last year. And so there are fewer options for people when it comes to housing. And upper floor residential housing was once a common component to downtowns. And I think renovating these often vacant and underutilized spaces is a logical step to increase the supply and really the assortment of housing offered in a rural community. And also really increase the vitality of downtown areas. I think that Senator Dahl pointed out, making downtowns cool again is something that I know that many cities are looking at. So as part of our testimony, I'd like to turn things over to Jamie Sauter, a realtor and developer from Emporia, to talk a little bit about a project that he's worked on.
Go ahead.
I think he's joining us.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here in regard to the rural housing incentive districts. 16 years, I was born and raised in Emporia, and this real estate and developing has become a passion of mine, and so I can speak on this in a lot of different directions, but I don't want to be redundant with what David had offered in his testimony. The housing shortage has become such a problem that it's almost trivial at this point. I think everyone really knows. But one of the things I would like to speak on is the need for a variety of projects. We put in a greenfields site subdivision in Emporia, 26 lots, utilizing the RHID, and we built it out in 3 years. We have 3 lots left currently, and so it's been a success, and we should get paid back. One of the challenges with that site is that, and the reason why the RHID was vital is it was about all in with holding costs and everything. It was about a $2.2 million project. But the net of the lot values was about $700,000. So not very good math on that from a developer standpoint. So it's hard to track developers to rural towns because of the cost. It's a lot of risk with not much certainty in the reward. And the cost of construction has far outpaced the value, the average value of homes in our market too. So it makes just doing greenfield sites not the only option. So we have to have diversity. And I think one of the challenges that towns like Emporia face is that we have a housing shortage that we are trying to address so that we continue to be a desirable location. But we have to do so in a way where we're not expanding the footprint of our community. In other words, we need to utilize existing infrastructure wherever possible and on whatever scale possible, so that we're not creating more space that the taxpayers shoulder the burden for through property taxes without increasing our population base. So that is one, when we talk about housing, we don't always talk about it. I think the knee-jerk reaction is we'll just go take an empty field and put streets and sewer in and then use the property taxes like a residential TIF to pay it back. I wish it was that simple, but it's just not. So utilizing existing infrastructure is something that is vital that we continue to focus on in addition to greenfield developments, because towns like Emporia, we really have to pick and choose because we can't swing and miss. We can't afford it because it has the potential to bankrupt individuals, developers such as myself. And so, that's probably the one point that I would really want to drive home. I was part of the testimony when we extended out to 25 years, so I have a very good working knowledge of the RHID, and I'm very excited about this potential for using this for downtown projects. As a local business owner in Emporia, we own 2 properties downtown that we are looking at currently for upper story development. They're expensive. And I think one of the benefits of this is this is a mechanism that it doesn't fully fund a project by any means, but it takes a nice chunk of it out and it allows us to build in a way that's going to be, where we don't have to cut corners. We can build safer. We bring historical buildings back up to date. And again, we can take in the circumstance of where my office is, we can take the footprint of one building and add 4 residences to it. And then another building that we own that we have 3 storefronts on, we're going to be able to add 10 residences to it. And that's a huge impact on our market. So the thoughts I had in regard to this, and again, have been involved with a greenfield site on this, and I have a very good working knowledge of the RHID, so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Rob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I can't see his name. What?
Jamie Souter.
Jamie?
Jamie. Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate your testimony here. And really, I really like the idea of utilizing existing space and renovating that. The district that I represent has a very high population of elderly people. And this is, of course, this is just my perception, is that generally these people prefer to stay in their homes that were built post-World War II. And it just becomes troublesome to maintain their yard and, whatnot. And also loft space isn't very accessible for somebody elderly. If it's stairs, there would have to be elevator access and whatnot. So while I love the idea, is it really applicable to the majority of Western Kansas small towns? I mean, I really do enjoy the idea, but we don't have that many young, single, people that want to live in a loft-type space. They want family homes. They want housing for our elderly population. So how could we use this to fit those needs?
I think the RHID is a tool. It can almost be a Swiss Army knife because it can be used very handily on greenfield projects. I know David was asked a question when this was brought about. I think it was like in '98 when the League of Municipalities introduced the RHID legislation originally in '98. And it's geared to be a civic instrument. It was geared for cities to bond infrastructure projects and then be able to and avoid having like special assessments that were just on that neighborhood. They could use the incremental increase from growth in that area. And so it wasn't a double tax burden, essentially, infrastructure and regular property taxes. And so, I mean, the way the RHID to making it more robust, making it more of a universal tool, developers can pick and choose. And while I certainly understand that upper story development is not going to be something that maybe is something that's needed in every town, but there are towns where it will be, I think, very, very useful. And I think Emporia is a great example. And I can't speak for a lot of other towns, but Emporia is a great example. And one of the projects that we're working on, we obviously have had this on our radar, the RHID. And one of the things that the RHID would allow us to do with our project is add an elevator. So that we can have, we aren't limited on the crowd of who can live there. And elevators $150,000 cost. Knowing that there's a potential payback on that through the incentive helps us with that. The other side of this too that I think is important to note is this: it's not free money, it's not a grant, and it doesn't cost. It doesn't really have a cost because you're basically taking these upper stories that are taxed at a zero rate. And you're talking about incentivizing with taxes that aren't even there right now. So it's not taking from anyone. The state mandated that I can't remember how many mills it is that the schools still get from it. So there is still an increase of property taxes in the short term while the RHID runs its course, but it doesn't take anything away, making it more robust.
I think it's a whole host of different programs. Like, for an example, I was driving through a city over Saturday, and seeing some friends, and drove through Fort Scott. I don't know if you've ever been down through there. There was an old insurance building, pretty big insurance building, about 6 or 7 floors. They'd done a tax credit project for senior housing. It's their high rise. I mean, there's a lot of apartments. There's a local baseball player. He played Major League Baseball, Adam LaRoche. He's kind of brought some investors into the town, and they've been buying the buildings, redoing them. I expect that town in 5 or 10 years, to look pretty historic, the downtown. But they're taking building by building, and it just seems like there's, the bottoms, upstairs, redoing them, apartments. But then I think when we redid the program, extended it from 15 to 25 years, one of the key sellers to me was on the program is, the upper end housing that you were building in Emporia. Every time someone moves into that opens up some mid-range housing, which then opens up lower end housing. So when you move a family to even upper end, you open up other ranges for families. And so I don't know. That's what I like about the program. It might not work in all your cities, but I bet you it'll work in more than you think, because Fort Scott's a town of under 10,000 people, and, you know, it's probably a town that I could see it being utilized. And I bet you Iola, there's a ton of them, Chanute. Go ahead, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand there is some great stuff going on in Fort Scott, but also we have to look to what happened to the price chopper. They gave IRBs and all these grant programs, multi-million-dollar remodel. The store sits empty in less than a year. So we have to be very cautious on these programs, but I'm a big fan of what's going on. The locals in Fort Scott are working together as a community, and we need that, but we also need to be aware.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was, what was it? It was a Woods or something, and then it went vacant, the grocery store. There's a Walmart right next door, and then Price Chopper come in, and it didn't work. But go ahead, Senator Rob.
Sorry, one more follow-up comment. While I would support something like this, I just want to make sure that we're careful not to be pricing our elderly out of their homes, because I really do think that's where the majority of them prefer to stay. But increasing property taxes, or, you know, it almost makes it impossible for, especially like a single widowed woman to stay in her home that she has lived in for 60 or 70 years. So I just think we just need to be very cognizant of where we're offering tax breaks so that we're not pushing people out of their homes.
Yeah, I think we've done models on it. I mean, you know, if it goes out 25 years, you know, you develop 40 acres. If you get 25 lots, probably on the 26th year, you're probably just one house would have more money than the vacant ground. Now, I don't know about the building, but it sounds like to me, most of them buildings, if they're vacant, there's very little property tax. You know, it's probably evaluated more on the usage. I mean, every property I've ever owned, the valuation goes on, you know, what your major usage is. So I think somewhere down the road, you're probably getting nothing now. Somewhere down the road, it'll actually increase the property taxes that you're getting, which should lower, in theory, property tax on the seniors. Senator Stephan.
Thank you. But, you know, that kind of gets back to the statement the gentleman from Emporia made about how when you develop that lot, the initial impact on the city from a property tax standpoint is negative. It makes your property taxes go up because they have to invest in all this infrastructure right off the bat that then gets paid back over time. So, you know, that it is a very, very fine line of trying to do good and pushing up other people's property taxes. So I appreciate Senator Straub's statements.
Yeah, I think, is that bonded? Would that be bonded, your project?
So the project that we did, that we started in 2016, was all done with private funds. So we took a piece of ground that we already owned that was sandwiched between two other subdivisions and basically extended the infrastructure to create new lots. So there wasn't an impact. I mean, the houses that were all built are all taxed at the regular rate. There's no assessment, and and we didn't bond any money. It was all privately financed, and they're all taxed at the normal rate that real estate's taxed. The challenge is you know, the cost of construction for greenfield right now is, you know, to build a house. Our average sale, put it to you this way, the average sale price in Emporia right now is about $115,000. The cost of construction to build a 1,200 square foot home exceeds $200,000. And so you know, just building new houses, we price a lot of people out of the market there. It doesn't really have a negative impact on property taxes. When I talk about property tax, what we're trying to avoid is just only expanding the footprint of our community to meet the housing need. We're trying to use infrastructure that's in place already so that it doesn't create a bigger tax burden on other taxpayers, so that we're not adding residences and adding streets and adding sewer lines and adding water lines, things that the city has to own and maintain and pay for through property taxes. We want to be able to utilize that infrastructure that's already in place. So it should help lessen or keep level the tax burden.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking that you're adding new taxpayers. They're not gonna be there until it's paid off, but once it's paid off, it's like a
Certainly.
lot. I mean, in my mind, it's a little different than this, but it's similar to, we'll say, the abatement that happened at Wolf Creek. You took some property off the tax rolls that were probably several $1,000s over a 10-year period. But after that 10 years was up, you had an asset that was worth several $billion that you were taxing, and it's caused the property tax to go down. That's just how I see it, but I could be perceiving it wrong. Questions or comments? Not seeing. Thank you. Mark? Eric Sartoris for the league.
Do it in one, maybe. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. You come here, you learn something every day. I'm going to go back to our notes to see if we did introduce this legislation, as Jamie said, in 1998. That actually predates me, and that's getting harder to do. But I appreciate the chance to be here. Eric Sartorius, Executive Director of the League. Great discussion here. I mean, really, you all are getting at the heart of what some of the challenges are. And Senator Straub's point, every option doesn't work for every community. And I was looking at your district a little bit, and Pratt may have some opportunities, but Greensburg, having been flattened, may not have the second stories that make sense. But it is an opportunity for places, and if you walk down downtown Topeka and see your second and third stories, those are the types of things. And kind of to Senator Steffen's point, it looks like 99 counties would be able to utilize this, and then you have to see, there are only about 8 or 9 cities in Kansas that are over 80,000 in population. So it would apply to most cities. Always keep in mind, over half the cities in Kansas are under 500 in population. You know, so 625 cities, 54% under 500. So we do.
It was counties over or under 80,000 and cities under 60, yeah.
And so the vast majority of the state would be included. Jamie highlighted very well, you know, what works in Emporia. And as I was sitting there and listening to the discussion, Scott City is one place that I know of where there have been some a building done of quadplexes and absolutely, I mean, I was really thinking of Senator Straub's point, your widows, your older couples that don't want to go up. I mean, I barely want to go upstairs anymore, but they don't want to go up, but they still want their home. And so what I want to say it was actually a farmer rancher out in Scott County did was took some of his money and invested in these fourplexes that instead of the 3 or 4 bedroom, 2-car garage house that this couple might have raised their family in, these are 2-bedroom and 1-car or 2-car garage facilities. So they moved from their 3-bedroom, 2-car that may be a little bit more house than they want, but they still want to be in there. And that, as Senator Olson kind of referenced, allows that churn where then the young family that may have 1 or 2 kids in a 3-bedroom, 2-car garage is exactly what they need. It works. And then the new construction challenges, they're coupled, they're the extension of services. We have so many cities that have actually shrunk in population that at their height, the services have been expanded. And so we've got the gas, the sewer, the electric, everything running past these properties that are prime for people. The final little anecdote I'll leave and stand for questions, Mr. Chairman. The dearth of housing is enormous in all size cities. One thing I recalled while sitting here is listening to city officials tell me that and the two that came to the top of mind, both Dodge City and McPherson, some of the employers in those cities have actually rented out entire floors of hotels, sometimes multiple floors of hotels, to be able to have their employees be in the city to work because there is no housing that they can get for them that they can either afford or can be built. And so when you talk, and then, we kind of hit on it when the league was here a week or two ago, when you get into costs of new construction, it's difficult for a developer to pencil out putting in a $150,000, $180,000 house if the income and jobs aren't there for folks to support it. They may want a single-family house, but it may not pencil out for a developer to do them. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I know you've got more stuff to do. I'm happy to answer questions, and we'll stand for questions.
Questions? You got off easy, Eric.
I'll be back for more in a minute.
Okay. We've got some written testimony. Are there any further questions for the proponents? Not seeing any. We'll move on to the opponents. Michael Austin, are you online? Oh, is he written? Okay, do we have any opponents? No. Okay, we'll close the hearing. Do we have any neutrals? Not seeing any. We'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 90, and we'll move over to Senate Bill 91. Chuck, you want to give us an overview on 91?
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. Senate Bill 91 addresses the High Performance Incentive Program, which the committee addressed previously with another bill. This particular bill deals with the tax credit that is provided to businesses that make an investment pursuant to the terms of the program, an investment in a business facility. And the bill provides for a means that that tax credit may be transferred. It applies only to projects placed into service on and after January 1st, 2021. The original claimant of the credit may transfer up to a total of 50% of the credit to one or more transferees. The transfers must be within a single year. The transferee must claim the credit in the year it was transferred. The transferee may carry the credit forward for deduction up to 16 years. And finally, there's a provision that if the original credit is disallowed, the original taxpayer is liable to the state for the amount disallowed. And that is what the bill does.
Questions? Not seeing any. We'll go ahead and start. First proponent, David Soffer, Kansas Department of Commerce.
Long time no speak.
Yeah, there we go.
David Sofer, Legislative Policy Director with the Department of Commerce. Here to talk to you about SB 91. So I know we covered a lot of the high performance incentive program in the previous bill we worked on when it with respect to removing the linkage between that and KICR. So I won't spend a lot of time talking about the program itself. Just a reminder, so the key component that is at issue here is the 10% income tax credit for the eligible capital investment made as part of this program. So that is when you're talking about the 5 metro counties, so Wyandotte, Sedgwick, Shawnee, Douglas, and Johnson, that's at least $1 million. And then for the rest of the state, it has to exceed $50,000. So that 10% tax credit is kind of the issue at play here. So just kind of a couple of things to note. So again, it is one of the most valuable incentives to our state. It is non-discretionary, meaning that you're eligible based on the requirement by law as written in statute. Last time Legislative Post Audit reviewed this program, which I believe was in 2014, 2015, it found that for every $1 invested in by the state, the program brought back $56.20 in business investment. So, what's the issue? Why are we here to deal with this bill? So while the tax credit can carry over for a 16-year period, assuming the company is able to recertify, so they have to make sure they are meeting those wage requirements each and every year. Otherwise, if they are not recertified, they cannot continue to claim that tax credit. Companies have struggled to utilize that tax credit. You know, there's a lot of, we've heard from companies that the main issue is just it's with respect to their tax liability and the way the tax structure works, and they're just not able to claim these credits within the 16 years. It's important to note that this credit is not refundable. So if you can't use it against your tax liability, you can't use it in that year. We know that there are currently hundreds of millions in HPIP credits that sit on our books each year. If the goal is to truly incent companies, promote pro-business environment, you know, and those that are focused on capital investment, high-paying jobs, we should offer incentives tailored to their needs. If we don't, we're going to continue to lag. There are other states that do. I mean, for example, Florida, Arkansas, Missouri, New Mexico, New Jersey. That's just a small list of companies that allow transferability specifically related to their capital investment, job-creating incentives. So what does this bill do? As Charles mentioned, the company would be allowed to transfer up to 50% of the tax credits it receives as part of that capital investment tax credit. But we did want to limit some of the financial liability to the state. So that transfer must occur within 1 calendar year. The company can decide which calendar year it would like to make those transfers. A company may make as many transfers as it would like to get to that 50% limit, but it must occur within that calendar year. If they decide to, let's say, use that transfer later on, then if they've already claimed more than 50%, then they would obviously not be able to transfer more than what is left. And then this would only be eligible for projects placed into service as of January 1st, 2021 going forward. Again, we did want to limit some of the liability to the state on the book side. So again, I think it's important for us to remain competitive with other states while also addressing some of the business needs and making sure that our programs are meeting their needs while also remaining competitive in our state. Certainly encourage you to listen to some of the folks that are going to talk after me about specifically from the business side, how this could be an incredibly valuable component to them and how it could be a game changer. So with that, I'll be happy to stand for any questions when the time's right.
We'll hold off. Eric Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Good morning. My name is Eric Stafford with the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, here to speak in support of Senate Bill 91. Transferability of HPIP credits is something that our members have talked about for a long time. HPIP is one of the few incentive programs that we have in the state. We appreciate the Department of Commerce for bringing this bill forward. We do think it's a positive change, protects the state in terms of the impact on the fiscal impact today, but ultimately this is something that the HPIP program is something that has been effective in. I think it's resulted in investment for the state. So, you know, you can't claim those credits if you don't have a tax liability. If you're a company who's taking your profits and reinvesting and expanding, you are not generating profits and you can't claim your credits. So as David said, you know, we probably have $450 or $500 million on the books today for the state's liability for HPIP credits that are out there, but you know, maybe 50% of those will be claimed over time. So we've had investment. Businesses have taken advantage of the program that's out there. In an ideal world, I know I've had some conversations this morning. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have incentives. We would just have a market system where, you know, we have zero or very low tax rates that help us grow as a state. But you know, that's not the world we live in. We live in a world that even with states that have zero income tax, they still offer incentives. So you look at Texas, that they have, you know, deal closing funds with, you know, $500, $600, $700 million in cash available to give cash incentives to businesses looking to relocate. So it's one of the tools that we have in the toolbox for our state. We'd appreciate your support in making this tool better, and be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Okay, we'll hold them to the end. Kevin Walker.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Kevin Walker, Overland Park Chamber. I won't belabor this a lot. My comments are very similar to what you heard from Mr. Sofer and Mr. Stafford. I think the important takeaway here for us, in the border with Missouri, Missouri has transferability of tax credits. And so when we talk about being competitive with our neighbors, this is really a major issue for us. This allows us to take a very strong program. You heard some testimony already that this has been shown by LPA to be very positive in terms of return on investment, which is a great thing. So, bottom line, we have a good tool in the toolbox, which I think we all feel is important. This bill allows us to sharpen that tool and use it even a little more effectively, and it helps us remain competitive, particularly up and down that border where Missouri does have that transferability of credit. So with that, I'll leave it there, and I'll answer questions whenever it's appropriate.
Okay. Eric Sartorius.
Good morning again. Eric Sartorius, League of Kansas Municipalities. I'll try and be even shorter this time. The League is supportive of the HPIP program. It's redundant, like saying an ATM machine, I just realized. We support HPIP. One thing we really appreciate is that the legislature has worked, kind of like the rural housing credit, to tailor this so that both smaller communities and larger communities can avail themselves of it, so that rural communities that may still have development, but maybe not on the scale of larger cities, can still utilize it. It focuses, as the gentleman before me have said, high wages, capital investment, all things that cities are always excited to have around for their residents. The one piece that I just want to note in our testimony, and we're working with the Department of Commerce and Revenue on, is that one portion of HPIP is that if a headquarter or capital facility is built as part of the program, that the company can avail themselves of sales tax exemption on that construction. And we just want to work to make sure that there's a way that cities are notified that there's a potential there, that that will be taken and utilized, so that they don't get surprised at the end when the construction is completed, but no sales taxes flow from that construction. So we're working with them, having good conversations. Just a piece, I don't know if we'll have an amendment by the time you all work the bill, but want to get that done, and we'll stand for questions whenever.
Okay. We've got several other written proponents. Questions or comments? Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for any one of the conferees that was a proponent for the bill. The transferability, could that take somebody's income tax below zero?
David Sofer, Legislative Director, Department of Commerce. In conversations with Department of Revenue, it cannot, because it only goes against the tax liability as far as it was explained. Me.
But with the bookkeeping, you're positive that their income tax, usually this transferability will take it below zero. Otherwise, why would they need to transfer it?
How could you take it below zero when it's?
So the reason why they would want to be able to transfer it is because if they're not going to claim it, they would like to see some dollars back in return. There are other folks that might be able to see their tax liability go down. They may not have to be able to pay dollar for dollar on it. They may be able to purchase it for 90 cents on the dollar, 85 cents on the dollar. So thus the transferee saves, the transferor saves, and the state still has the same type of liability.
I just have concern over the transferability. We don't allow individuals to do that. It's become a new gamesmanship between companies to be able to transfer tax liabilities. I think we need to be very cautious with that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stephan.
Thank you, Chairman. Let's walk through this a little bit, how this program's used, and then y'all can answer my question for me. Basically, you've got a private entity coming to an agreement with the state to do something, build something, start a company, and in exchange for doing that, there's an agreement to give them X number of tax credits. And that's the end of the deal. You all have a contract to that effect. So does this not isn't this a kind of a backdoor way for one of the parties to come back in and say, oh, you know, I made that original agreement, but it's not working out quite the way I hoped for it to. But boy, if I can talk you all into transferring these, then I can get a check. Aren't we kind of renegotiating an already set contract?
No, because this is for projects going forward. And then on top of that, what I would tell you is there are numerous deals that we work on where HPIP is not enough and we end up losing the deal because other states do offer transferability. So while you may view it as potentially renegotiating a deal, I would tell you that number one, it's for projects going forward. But number two, you're not factoring in how many deals we're losing because we don't have the same type of offers that other states do. And so because of that, the state is losing opportunities as a result.
You got the floor. Senator Tyson.
Thank you. Follow-up, I'd like to see some documentation. How many have we lost as a result of not having transferability?
We'd have to, again, not always do companies exactly tell us why, but we do have some, and I can see if I can get some numbers. There are limitations on what I can disclose because of NDAs, but I can try to get you a specific number, not company names per se.
You got another one? Senator Stephan?
What do we use the term projects going forward? What's your
So it's
definition?
projects placed into service. That means the building is up and running, the jobs are starting to come into place. So it's not necessarily when we quote unquote come to an agreement, it's when the project itself is up and running.
Okay, but at some point you come to an agreement on the terms of these tax credits.
Correct.
And now you're coming back and wanting to change the terms of the agreement.
It
One
wouldn't
party
change for
is-
previous ones.
One party is wanting to change the terms of the contract on the tax credits, right?
But again, we're not talking about projects that are already placed into service where they're not renegotiating. They don't have the option to then transfer it specifically for projects that are
This
new.
transferability is not being offered to existing projects.
Not retroactively, it's only going forward. That's how I understand it. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
You got a question, Senator Peck? Go ahead, Senator Peck.
Thank
You
you.
got something to add, Eric? Or you seem like you were, no, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to throw this out, and I don't care who answers it. I'm sure there's going to be several jump up to answer. In Section 1G, in the event a tax credit earned by a taxpayer and transferred to a transferee is later disallowed, you can read all that, but it talks about that the repayment is, the tax credit shall be liable for okay, in that section, if it is, and I don't know why it would ever be disallowed if it originally was allowed, but who's responsible to pay it back, and how could we, or why would we, or when would we, or to Commerce or whomever, disallow something that had been allowed? Can someone explain that section 1G to me?
Sure. So the way it works with HPIP is that the way we factor in the tax credit is it's when you file your taxes, right? So when we have a deal to have a company come in and do the, put the capital investment into place, the jobs, that reporting requirement is done when you file your taxes. So when you file the numbers, that is when we establish the 10% and how much you are owed on the tax credit side. The reason why we put that item into place is if a company is claiming X, we always have to follow up with an audit. That audit may very well take a year, 2 years, until revenue is able to take care of that. So as a result, if we had two options. Either we could delay the transferability, which would hurt businesses as far as being able to have to wait until they're audited and we can verify the numbers. Or number two, they could transfer them, but at some point they will be audited. And if the numbers do not match up with what they are claiming, then they would be held liable to repay the state based on the difference between what they claimed versus what is accurate. It is simply protecting the state from a liability standpoint of transfers happening based on incorrect numbers that are being claimed.
They'd be charged interest too, right?
That's, I don't have the answer to that. I can double check on that one.
You say we, this says the Secretary of Revenue, which is not you, not your department, a total different department in the Kansas government.
When I say we, I mean the state. I do represent the state of Kansas as on the government side. I do represent the Department of Commerce, but we as a state.
Looks like to me, Mr. Chairman, that would disincentivize a lot of people or cause people to have questions, and maybe another conferee can provide me some comfort. They may not be able to, but.
Go ahead, Eric.
Thank you. Senator, good question. I think ultimately it is just a checks and balances. As David mentioned with the audit, ensuring that the numbers are matching up from somebody's tax liability versus what they're claiming versus what actually occurred. Yeah, so I think I think that's just protecting the state in that section. That's how we've interpreted it.
I understand the protecting the state, but it looks like to me if I'm a transferee, then I'm trusting that it was transferred to me properly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, further questions, comments? Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question, I guess it'd be for the department. How would it benefit to transfer these to an individual?
Are you talking about the company being able to transfer it to the individual? The benefit from our end is on the company side and being able to make sure that the company is able to utilize those tax credits. If the company wants to be able to transfer it to an entity, an individual, we leave that up to the company. But from our end, we are mostly focused on the HPIP-related company being able to utilize the tax credit.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, I just have concerns over this, Mr. Chairman. It's government picking winners and losers. Thank you.
Did Sprint, what happened with the Sprint tax credits? Did they expire?
I'm not sure on that. I'd have to see if I could find out from the Department of Revenue.
You know, a lot of them get these tax credits and you know, Sprint had so many, they could never even use them all. Are there any other questions or comments? Yeah, Eric.
And I think that's the purpose behind the transferability and the purpose behind the bill is that in those instances where, you know, they have expanded or made investments and they continue to make investments and are not making profit, being able to sell those credits, even probably at a discounted rate, gives them the economic benefit of selling them and then gives another taxpayer the benefit of having those credits against their tax liability. So, you know, I think to Senator Tyson's question or comment about picking winners and losers, I mean, Peak has much more discretion. I mean, HPIP, you make your investment, you're qualifying for the program. So it's not, I think HPIP is the furthest thing from picking winners and losers. It's rewarding the investment in the state that businesses are making. You know, the same businesses that were shamed yesterday on the floor. So
Let me get it right. So someone makes an investment, they receive a credit. To use that credit, they got to have a tax obligation to offset that. So
right.
you probably made some money in the state.
Well, I mean, and I mean, obviously, we're still having credits be claimed today. So not every business is going to want to transfer their credits. They're going to want to keep them for themselves. But I think just having that option for, you know, rapidly expanding businesses, I mean, businesses that continue to take their profits and reinvest them in their own company, they're not going to have tax liability, but they might be investing in a massive facility. So
Exactly.
I think I don't think it's hurting the state at all because there's already the financial commitment and obligation there under the program. So if we don't want the program, let's do away with the program, but then let's get corporate income tax
I
down to 2%.
think it works.
I think it works too, but, you know, I don't think having transferability of credits is, you know, choosing favorites necessarily in our view.
Well, I mean, I think that's, whether we like it or not, this committee is looking through all the different incentive programs. we're in charge of it, so, I mean, some people might want to just do away with them all. I don't think that's the answer by far. I think we need to look at modernizing them. But, you know, it's everybody's choice. But there's 49 other states out there that's, I mean, you've seen the housing. We don't have near what Iowa and certain states have. I guarantee if we looked at other states, and maybe that's what we need to do, research, is look around, maybe get a list of all the incentive programs, the states around us, because I think you might be surprised that we don't have as many as a lot of them. So, other questions or comments? Okay, we'll close the hearing, or wait, that's the proponents. Do we have any opponents? Any opponents? On this bill? On 91? Okay. Any neutrals? Not seeing any. We'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 91. With that, we're adjourned.